Well, good morning. It's the 25th of January 2025 and I'm in Cornwall in the UK and I'm doing the Arc of Attrition 50-mile race. As you can see, it's been a bit stormy here over the last few days. I mean, look at that. That's absolutely mega. These waves are enormous. I don't know how big they look on camera, but I tell you, in person, they've got to be 20 feet high. Absolutely mega. Training has gone reasonably well. I had 2 weeks of COVID at the beginning of the training block and a couple of weeks on holiday in the middle where I could only do limited amount of running, but otherwise I've had a reasonably solid training block. Not as many long runs perhaps as I would have liked, but I think it should be good enough at least to get me to St Ives, and after that we'll see what's possible. But it's 80 kilometres and I've not done 80 kilometres before. The furthest I've done is UTS 60k and that was 3,500 metres of elevation. This is a bit less elevation, but it's another 20k of mileage. It's a big challenge, but let's see if we can get it done. So you can't say I'm not keen anyway. First in line for the 50 check-in. There's all my gear. Waiting for check-in to open in about half an hour. It's very muddy here. Well, we're here, we're at the Minack Theatre. This is the start of the Arc of Attrition 50-mile run, 80 kilometres coming up. We've been very lucky with the weather. It's a beautiful sunrise just coming up over here. And we're just hanging around waiting for the elite runners to go off and for the wave one. I'm in wave 2 and we'll be off in about 3/4 of an hour. So I'll get a coffee and generally enjoy the vibe. What a start to a race though, look at this. I mean, that is a view, isn't it? Excited, excited. Wow, quite excited now.
Races that now attract the best trail runners across the globe. And also, sorry Dave. You today, it doesn't matter about how training is gone. Don't worry about that. So have a good run. Okay, that's happy collecting the Let's see that. Everybody with
60 seconds to go.
Listen to the music. Take it all in.
This is it.
Together you
30 seconds to go.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Bit of a queue at the start, but we're off. Up the steps. We're off. Started and out of the Minack Theatre and on our way. And look at that, here's the first view. Wow, look at this. Well, we're 4.5k into it now. Everyone's settling in. Weather's beautiful. Right, another 2 or 3k to get to the Land's End. Just taking my first gel, drinking lots of water, and trotting along steadily. So far, the section from the Minack to Land's End is quite pleasant, very runnable. Okay, we're just coming up to Land's End, first checkpoint in about 1 hour 15. So I think I managed my food and my drink quite well in that section. I've used my water, filled up with tailwind, and had my gel. So I think it's a 2 hour cut-off here as well. So reasonably good time. Happy with that first section. Well, that's Land's End. We're out of there in 1 hour 15. Just a water stop. Barely a breath of wind today. And there's the lighthouse in the distance. 1 hour 15 is good effort actually. What does the thing say? The thing says 10:45 and it's 10 o'clock, so I'm well ahead of the dreaded word cut off. Fun. This is much more fun. Yeah, this is good fun, isn't it? I didn't expect it to be this much fun. Yeah. It's all amazing in every single way you look. That is an amazing beach. Ah, rubbish top, good idea. Thank you. Sand Beach, look at that. Doesn't get any better than that. So far, what I like about this course is that you do have the uphills, but unlike Snowdon where the downhills are savage, you can't really make the most of them in terms of running. You get some nice, gentle, sweeping downhill runs, so it gives you something back in terms of pace and mileage under your belt. So I do like that about this course so far. It's not all like that, but none of Snowdon was like that, so in that sense I sort of get a bit of confidence on where the extra 20k might come from in my legs. Well, let's see. Down on the beach. Thank you. Now we're into deep mining territory. It's been a lot longer than the 2 hours allocated in the official cut-off times. I think they assume you're going to have a bit in the bank from the first checkpoint, so it's taken us a good 2 and a bit hours to get here. But we're almost at Bottleack, so that is the final checkpoint for the big section, 5-hour section leading up to St Ives. So the general consensus seems to be, if you can get to St Ives, you've got a good chance of finishing the race. So I'm going to have to give it my all on that section, and if I don't make the cut-off, at least I can say I left it all out on the table. But we're going to get to this cut-off with about half an hour to spare, I think. So that's not too bad. Look at all these structures here. Amazing. Right, Bottleack. Right, in and out of there quite quickly. Fully loaded up with Marmite sandwiches, bananas, water, and just about everything else. So, onwards to the next checkpoint, 16 miles to St Ives. This is the big one. If I can crack this, I'm a long way towards getting this race done. Let's see. Okay, I got out of the Bottleack checkpoint. I just heard somebody pronounce it as Bottleack, not Bottleack. Got out of the Bottleack checkpoint at 12:20, which was 25 minutes ahead of the cut-off, and I've now got 24 kilometres to run to get to St Ives, and I have to get there by 5:15. So 5 hours from here. And my energy levels are okay, it's just my left knee started giving me a bit of jip. So it was hurting a bit earlier, but we went away. Let's see what happens. See if that develops into anything. It's starting to get tough now. There's a guy back there with cramp. This is perhaps where I made my first error and when my plans started to unravel. I was so focused on getting to the aid station at St Ives that I had overlooked that there was another cut-off point at Zena, about 15 kilometres after Bottleack. The conditions underfoot between Bottleack and St Ives are notoriously difficult, with very technical, rocky and muddy terrain. Although the weather on the day was good, the wet weather in the days preceding the race had made the terrain very wet, and the 1,200 or so runners from the 100-mile race and the 50-mile race who had covered that ground before me had made conditions very challenging. The sublime running conditions that I had experienced up until Bottleack gave way to bogs, liquefied mud and slippery, grassy descents. I had thought that using my poles would be beneficial, but in retrospect, although they were helpful on some of the hills, overall I felt that they hampered my progress and slowed me down. Another mistake I made was that I was being too precious about trying to keep my feet dry. Usually having wet feet doesn't bother me, but I was conscious that as this was a long race, I didn't want to have any foot problems as a result of wet feet. So I did spend a lot more time than I should have done trying to go round wet areas when I should have just gone through the middle of them and got it over with. From 27 kilometres onwards, my progress was painfully slow, and I reached Zena at 3:40 p.m, 10 minutes after the cut-off time. It was a shame as my legs felt good and I had been managing my nutrition and hydration well. It was just the lack of pace that let me down in the end. It was somewhat ironic that the stretch between Bottelac and St Ives was my undoing, as this was the only stretch that I had actually recce'd in December. On camera, the conditions looked much worse on that occasion, but despite the stormy conditions, it was much drier underfoot, and on the recce, I covered the same stretch of 7 kilometres in 1 hour compared to the 1.5 hours that it took me on race day. So 2025 was not to be my year. It was very disappointing as I'd trained really hard for this one, but I have to accept that I just didn't cope with the underfoot conditions very well. On the positive side, I learned a lot about what it takes to deal with that section of the course, and I have lots of things I want to work on with my running. I also saw some beautiful parts of Cornwall that I'd never seen before. I'm not the first person, and I'm sure I won't be the last person to tell their tale of woe about how the Arc of Attrition got the better of them, but I will be back, and I shall perhaps see you there in 2026.